What happens when a rocket science takes on the world of elite athletes? Today's guest on the Russo Edge Podcast is blending cutting edge science with real time performance, helping workers and athletes stay safer, go longer, and play smarter. Professor Mark Kendall is a biomedical engineer, inventor, and founder of WearOptimo. He's behind a new generation of micro wearables, tiny sensors designed to give real time insight into what's happening inside the body. And in sports, that insight can be the difference between winning and breaking down. Welcome to the Russo Edge Podcast. I'm your host, Solomon Wilcots. Today, we're speaking with Professor Mark Kendall, scientist, entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of WearOptimo. From rocket technology to cutting-edge medical devices, Mark has spent his career turning science fiction into real-world impact. His latest venture, WearOptimo, is changing the way we think about wearables, starting with hydration and how it affects everything from athletic performance to brain health. Mark, welcome to the Russo Edge Podcast. Great to see you today. How you doing?
Great to see you, Solomon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a great pleasure to have you. Let's get started with your personal story. Now, you started in aerospace engineering, and now you're pioneering new ways to monitor the human body. Walk us through that journey, Mark, and how did it lead you to WearOptimo?
So, Solomon, I love rockets, always have. Thought I'd still be working on rockets today. So I did my PhD in rockets a long time ago. I was funded by NASA. It was on hypervelocity aerodynamics. It was working on the world's fastest wind tunnel for Mars reentry vehicles. And I thought I was going to go to California to continue to work on rockets. I had a job lined up to go to Caltech, JPL, which is one of the meccas. It was fantastic. And then a 2-minute conversation just changed everything. So met a guy at a conference, and he came up to me and said, "I really enjoyed your presentation. I have this idea to use rockets to fire vaccines into the skin. Would you like to come and work with me?" And I thought, wow, that sounds really interesting. And I had 2 questions. The first was, where are you doing this work? And he said, at Oxford University. And my second question is, would I get a chance to row? That's crew. And he said, if you're good enough. So so instead of going to California to work on rockets for that stuff, I instead went to Oxford. And what really resonated with me, Sol, was instead of, by and large, a lot of rockets are used as killing machines, which didn't really sit well with me. This turned it on its head. We're actually using that force for healthcare. So that's how I got started on that journey, and not look back. It's been 27 years since, and I've been working in global technologies for healthcare since.
Well, your work today focuses on something called micro wearables. What exactly is micro wearables, and how is it different from the smartwatches or fitness bands that we already know about?
That's right. So I have one example of what our product is set to look like. So this is it here. And of course, we all know what smartwatches are. I'm wearing one today. And smartwatches are very useful, but they're very, very limited, Solomon. They're not. Think of the skin as just a great barrier, and it does its job. If it didn't, we'd be dead, right? It keeps the bad stuff out, the good stuff in. Things like Apple Watches, they gain access to a few things, but a good way of thinking about the skin is think of it as a wall, and you're trying to get access to another room. And an Apple Watch is trying to like put your ear against the wall and listen in, but you can't really hear much. It's muffled, right? Now, another device is out there, which is the continuous glucose monitoring device, right? And I have an example of one of the commercial products here, and you all can see that needle, that massive needle there. So what I'm holding in my hand is effectively the most successful medical device in human history. It's not by us, it's by others. If you have diabetes, this has changed your life entirely. It's fantastic. Millions of people have used it. And this is much better than blood pricks, etc. But that's glucose, and it's a massive needle. Yep. So I knew all of this, and I thought, well, hang on. I'm a founder of this field called microneedles. I've been working in that space for 20 years. And I thought, well, hang on, there's something here. What if we just have microelectrodes, gain access to signals, just listen in through that wall without putting a big hole in it like a CGM?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it feels like a sticker, but actually it's reaching in and meant like a stealth approach and gains access to all of these signals. And that's what we're doing. And I'm really pleased with what we've achieved so far and excited about the impact that our tech is set to make.
Well, your ability to detect anomalies, I think, would have to be very intricate. Let's talk about hydration. Most people
Oh,
think
yeah.
about dehydration, and it just means maybe drink more water, but it turns out it's much more complex than that. What's the real science behind hydration, and why is it such a critical metric in sports?
Oh, you're right, Solomon. It's a massive, massive area. Rightly, people talk about dehydration, but you can overhydrate as well. And particularly in athletic settings, there's been a multitude of deaths from people drinking too much water and dying there. So the overarching term we use is mishydration.
Hmm.
Okay, so you can be
Yeah.
underhydrated or overhydrated, and the science of it is really really compelling. And when we think of when most people think about dehydration or hydration, they just reach for a cup of water and think everything is sorted. I'm fine.
Hmm.
It's actually a far 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 bigger problem than that. So thirst doesn't do the job. Okay, if you rely on your thirst, it's too late. Thirst only kicks in when you're massively dehydrated.
Hmm.
And mildly dehydrated is the wrong term as well, because mild is bad. And let me explain why. So
Hmm.
there's an explosion of work, Solomon, last few years, and it's not the work of ours, it's the scientific community beyond WearOptimo. And what they've shown is really confronting. What they've shown is this: when about half Americans are chronically and mildly dehydrated,
Hmm.
okay, and you might be thinking, well, that's no big deal. I'm surviving. I'm going okay. It's not that at all. It turns out it's putting the body in a type of stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that when you're under that stress, your body's got to kind of adapt. But when you're stressed, you're not bringing your A game. You're putting on switches. You're in working in a less than optimal way. And what's been found, not our work, others, is that actually has a massive, massive impact on
Yeah.
you. So much so, it's reducing your life expectancy by 4 years.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that's on par with something like a glucose. If it was his own disease, it would be just like diabetes, right?
Yeah.
And also, so like everything in the body that's interconnected, the impact goes in many different ways. So it makes everything else worse as well. So 6 of the top 10 diseases as they exist are a lot worse if your background is being dehydrated. And let's just choose one as an example. Let's talk about dementia. Yep.
Yeah.
So let's play a little bit of a game. So Solomon, uh, uh, when you're dehydrated for a significant period of time, it increases your incidence of dementia.
Hmm.
Guess how much it increases your dementia incidence by? What percentage?
Uh, 10%, 20%.
48%.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And that's just that example. And there's many, many others, right?
Hmm.
So it's turned out to be people knew hydration was management was a big problem. They didn't know it was this big.
Yes.
Okay. And then now, but of course, it's not even just all of that, which is massive in its own right. It's how we roll in our day-to-day lives, Solomon.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
if we're say only 3% dehydrated, it affects our brains the equivalent of being drunk over the blood alcohol limit, right?
Wow.
So your brain functions off. And then this is where we get into one of our favorite topics. I'm looking behind you. I can see a myriad of great sporting paraphernalia.
Yeah.
So I love sports. You love it more because you've been an elite athlete.
That's right. Yeah.
Credit to you. But sports it plays out big time in the sporting domain
Hmm.
because if you're mildly dehydrated, it reduces your strength by about 7%. It reduces your endurance. And that cognitive function, your ability to concentrate, that's important too. You get sloppy in the sporting field scenario. So injuries happen a lot more as well. And so 7% is a big number in elite sports. If you're in the 100 meters race, if you're
Yeah.
7% off, you're nowhere, right?
That's
In
right.
elite
That's right.
sports, Solomon, you know this. People talk about 1%, 0.1%, the thinnest of
Yeah.
edges.
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
there's still a fat edge to be gained by just improving your hydration management,
Yeah.
let alone the thin edge. So I'm quite excited about that context.
Yeah. So, what can people in elite sports like rugby and Formula One racing, or even football, what can the teams or coaches begin to do real time to monitor hydration and then bring about a better solution of catching it before it becomes problematic?
Oh, there's many examples of that. So
Mhm.
let's talk about Formula One as one. And one of the reasons why is one of our investors is Mark Webber, a former Formula One champion.
Yeah.
So he talks about he did a race at Monaco some time ago, and his car hit the wall at 200 miles an hour. Okay, and then they did the post analysis of what took place, and turned out he was dehydrated, and it affected his cognitive function.
Hmm.
Now, one of our advisors is Luke Bennett, the former chief medical doctor of Formula One, so we're working quite closely with him on this. So there is a bottle of water that sits behind you in a tube, but drivers don't want to think about that when they're driving.
That's right.
They've got a
That's
lot to
right.
take on, right?
Hmm.
So our sensors will serve as a prompt, right? Another bit of information, take on board this,
Yeah.
and as a way to take that off their mind so
Yes.
that they can stay at peak level. Now, that's
That's
just
right.
one example. Now talk about tennis. So tennis, we know players like Pat Rafter, won the US Open, Australian great tennis player, former, I
Yep.
think he was world number one or thereabouts. But in conversations with Pat and people like Pat is what you call a sweater. He sweats a lot. And it got to such a point, Solomon, that it's playing on his mind, like before a game, before a big match. Instead of getting in the zone and thinking about the game, he's there worried about, what am I to do? Should I drink more?
Yeah.
Should I not? How do I handle all this? And
Hmm.
so that clutter is very important in the world of an elite athlete as well. That's just a couple examples. If we talk about impact sports,
Yeah.
you're a man of impact sports, so
That's right. Yeah.
football. So that plays out in many domains. When you hear that term fatigue,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is it? What is fatigue? A big part of that fatigue is your hydration has gone down,
Mm.
and as a result of that, your body is in type of stress. Concentration is off. If you're tackling, you'll get sloppy, you get injured more.
That's right.
It's actually it's highly correlated with a massive increase in your injuries.
Mm.
And then there's one extra bit, Solomon, that most people just are not aware of, but it's a big issue. So concussion.
Yeah. What are the links? Are there any links between hydration and concussions? Have you been able to establish any of those?
So the work of others rather than ours is
Hmm.
this. So firstly, everything I've just talked about, of course, applies in concussion. So if you're fatigued, you're
Yeah.
sloppier on the field,
That's right.
you miss a tackle, a hit goes
Hmm.
wrong, impact concussion. So that's significant.
Yeah.
But most people kind of get that. The real sort of aha moment is this additional piece, and that is the brain is mostly fluid. Yep, mostly water.
Yeah.
And it turns out that one of the biggest determinants of when an impact event happens, a key determinant for your level of concussion
Hmm.
is how hydrated you are at the time.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so let's just talk about it for a second. So say you're a bit dehydrated and you have a hit. Well, when that takes place, your brain is already in a form of distress. So
Yes.
that's the starting point. So it
Hmm.
sets you off on a much worse path of distress as opposed to being in its best form of itself as a starting point. And there's a lot more science associated with that. which I'm happy to get into in deep physiology, but that is the take-home message.
Mm-hmm. Really phenomenal and very impressive knowledge that I think a lot of athletes are going to now begin to explore. Just how hydration is one of those critical signs, right, for determining our health. What more can you, when you talk about establishing our own vital signs, how important is hydration on the list of, our heart rate, our pulse, the things that our doctors and our trainers are constantly checking? Why isn't hydration on that list? And should it be?
Oh, it's great. So, yeah, there's the medical community, doctors, nurses, practitioners, they have their 5 vital signs as the
Yes.
dashboard, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and you keep an eye on things, and when things are in the wrong direction, you take a deeper look. There's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And just like you said, there's the 5. They include heart rate, your temperature, etc. And they've actually been around a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Although there's one newcomer, which is your oxygen saturation, it's
Okay.
called
Yeah.
PSO2. That's come on board in the last 20, 30 years or so, but that's pretty much it. And but there's this massive push from the medical community for hydration to be the 6th vital sign, right?
Wow.
Because for all of that reason, when you're out with your hydration, there is a lot of reasons why you need to take a deeper look. It's one of the biggest indicators of your general health. And probably just something else to add, Solomon. We didn't really get into it, but elite athletes is there, and that's really important. And it matters in every domain. But as we get older, probably like a lot of things in life, it just gets a lot worse.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And aged care, elder care, those sorts of settings,
Mm-hmm.
about half the things that go wrong for someone in elder care is directly attributed to poorly managed hydration.
I think it's just incredible. Let's zoom in maybe a little bit. And where do you see micro wearables fitting into the future of monitoring the health? You just talked about some of the vital signs, and it should be listed as that 6th vital sign. I think that's very important. But how does your work help to complement what's already there, like the Apple Watch that we talked about, the Fitbit, all of these different devices? How does it help to complement or maybe go along with some of those devices?
That's right. These guys it feels like they've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
I think they just had their 10th anniversary.
Wow.
Pardon me, of when the first Apple Watch came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a few things they can do, but by having a genuine hydration measurement and having it pluggable and playable, you can imagine what we're producing with this guy ultimately could be embedded within.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the way it plays out, there's a myriad of possibilities and opportunities there. Solomon, we're beginning with elite sports first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why is elite athletes are like the Formula One engines of humanity.
I would agree.
Yeah. They put themselves through so much more than Joe Blogs, the average Joe, would never do. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They put do you know to run a textbook marathon these days, you put your body through about 8% dehydration to run a textbook marathon,
Mm-hmm.
and so these guys will benefit the most. That's why we're beginning with them.
Yeah.
And also they're putting themselves through the most. So we're getting this amazing data of extremes, life at the extremes with elite athlete, which helps build our algorithm and make it even stronger. And then we deploy into all those other markets that I touched upon before over time.
I have one last question for you. Being an old football player myself, there's been a lot of discussions about concussions. And I know you mentioned this earlier. How much do you think just the monitoring of hydration could help delineate between those vital signs that people are thinking when someone is distressed, maybe having a concussion, but in reality, they're just suffering from dehydration? Since the two sort of mirror one another, how much can this help to alleviate maybe some of the stress in that area and help provide a more healthy and more consistent diagnosis when it does come to concussions?
Oh, the overarching, all the science is pointing towards it have a massive impact.
Yeah,
What's really interesting is that the level of that hasn't yet been determined because the sensor hasn't been deployed. There hasn't been a way
right.
of doing that. But if I just illustrate it with a sort of different example to elite sports,
Hmm.
it's elder care. There's situations where people think they have delirium or even dementia,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah.
have all of the signs of delirium and dementia,
Hmm.
and it's traumatic for them. It's traumatic for the families. It's massively traumatic. Imagine where suddenly your family member, you think they have sudden onset dementia, and yet they get rehydrated and then they're fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
so that's just one example that illustrates that point. But if you map it back to elite sports, um, I have a lot of empathy for elite sports athletes. Not I've never been one, but I have an empathy for it
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
it's what they love doing. Their time doing it is limited. It's extremely competitive by its nature, and there's a lot riding on it because of this fusion of your the thing you do you love, but it's also your job as well. And you do not want to get injured. Your team doesn't want you to get injured, or you
No.
do not want your performance to drop as well. And I'm not saying what we're doing is a silver bullet. It's not, but there's a massive gap there that's left on the table of if you well maintain your hydration within your sweet zone, uh, you'll be taking away quite a few of those other contributing factors that are problematic right now.
Really good stuff. I can't thank you enough, to Dr. Professor Mark Kendall for joining us today, from the field to the racetrack and from deep mines to military front lines. Your work is really helping to reshape the way that we understand the body in motion. I'm Solomon Wilcots. We want to thank everyone for joining us right here on the Russo Edge podcast. Thank you for listening, everyone.